You're listening to Community Heroes podcast featuring people sharing about their stories with their disabilities. And now for your hosts, Brandon and Pate. Welcome back to Community Heroes podcast. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the U.S. Paralympian snowboarder, Zachary Miller. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
I'm doing good. Can you tell us about your disability and what it is?
Yes, so I have left hemiplegic cerebral palsy. What cerebral palsy is, in a very condensed nutshell, is basically a muscular disorder where it's congenital, so it always happens at birth, or basically before. So you have it your whole life, and it kind of messes with the connection that your brain has with your muscular system. So as you start to grow, you're underdeveloped, and so your muscles don't grow kind of the way that the rest of your body does. Your bones don't need to be told how to grow, but your muscles do, and that is why one of the biggest things that comes with a diagnosis of cerebral palsy is lots and lots of therapy, making sure that you're taking care of yourself and stretching and taking care of your muscles as best you can will help your quality of life. But an important thing about cerebral palsy is that no two cases are ever the same. Cerebral palsy has a massive spectrum from which people can be affected by it, ranging from people who are very high functioning and often don't even receive their diagnosis until much later in life when they're going through development and growth spurts and stuff like that, and they start to realize some things are off, to then people who are severely restricted by their cerebral palsy that will live pretty much all their life in wheelchairs. And so with that huge range comes all the other different ways that it can affect you. For me, mine is left hemiplegic, so it's the left hemisphere of my body. My left side is more affected than my right. My left side's always been weaker, and balancing on my left leg has always been a little bit more difficult for me. So it's all about figuring out how it affects you and then how you can best kind of combat those things.
How does your disability of cerebral palsy affect your everyday life?
It's it affects pretty much all of it. The difficult part about CP is that it's just your entire muscular system. So for me, the hardest part I think about my CP was when I was growing up and going through growth spurts. My bones would grow and my muscles wouldn't, and so they would just get stretched along, and I had to make sure I was on top of it to stretch them properly and take care of them so that they didn't get damaged. It resulted in a lot of difficult obstacles that we had to spend a lot of time in the hospital figuring out how to do. There were a lot of surgeries that were always recommended to me to make things easier, but I always turned them down because of the recovery time that it would take. I was a kid that never wanted to stop. I never wanted to slow down. I was always trying to go as fast as I could. So to tell me that this surgery might help fix the way my right leg is a little bit shorter than my left leg, well, that's great. But if I'm not going to be able to run with my friends and play soccer at school for 6 months, then I'll just put up with it. And so my mom basically continued to make sure I was doing my best in therapy, because cerebral palsy is painful. It's not a great feeling when your muscles aren't getting the right amount of growth that they need, and so they're just kind of being pulled in every which direction as the rest of your body grows. It's uh it's almost kind of like thinking about trying to grow a tree from a sapling to a full on tree without the stakes. The stakes are what hold it in place and make sure that it grows properly and straight and then becomes a strong tree. Without those, it can fall over, it can bend the wrong way, it can have all these issues with it that will last for the rest of the time that it is a tree. And it's the same way with CP. You need to be on top of it and taking care of yourself so that you can grow properly. When I was first diagnosed, I was well on my way to becoming a paraplegic from the chest down because my cervical spine wasn't forming correctly. And so I had to change the way my mom had to change the way I slept just as an infant to make sure that my neck had enough support to form correctly. And so there are days when I come home from training and my body wants to just lock up and stop moving. I've put it through enough stress for the day, and it's important that I stay on top of my recovery and my stretching routines to make sure I can keep going.
What challenges have you faced with competing in sports with a disability?
For me, it was a bit more of a unique situation because my cerebral palsy isn't as severe as it oftentimes can be with other people. There's people I meet all the time that don't know that I have cerebral palsy until I tell them. And while I kind of take that as a compliment because it's a testament as to, the amount of work I've put into taking care of myself to give me a somewhat normal life, um, it's something that kind of always irritates me in the back of my head because, growing up, I wanted to keep up with my peers. I wanted to keep up with my friends. I wanted to be picked first in PE, and it didn't really happen because I was always just a little bit slower. I was always just a little bit weaker, and unless people understood what cerebral palsy was and how it held me back, they would never understand why I was that little bit slower. And so I always remember that kind of being difficult for me, feeling like I sort of fit in, but can't because I have this disability that's kind of invisible. So no one really bothers to try and understand it because they don't see how it affects me. They don't see the problem, and they don't see what my life is like when I get home after a soccer game, and my brother has to carry me up the stairs because I don't have the strength in my legs anymore to just walk up the stairs and brush my teeth and go to bed. And so that was always difficult for me growing up. I had to learn how to be confident, in my own skin and my own body, and learn that I needed to pace myself, that I do need to take care of myself so that I can be independent.
Of course, what has it been like competing on the para side of para snowboarding?
It's been really cool because you learn so much about the people around you, and it kind of helps you realize that, maybe your situation isn't so bad, or that, there's a lot of different aspects to your situation that you didn't realize until you talk to them about theirs. And so to start to become a part of a community where all these other people have their own physical challenges, and learning about how, that makes them unique, and how they lost their leg, in a boating accident or a car crash, or, lost it to cancer and then survived and pulled through to thrive. It's cool to see that while my disability is very unique and individual to me, my lifestyle and the way that I've grown up feeling the way I have, and wanting more out of life, is very common amongst all these other athletes. So it's cool to be able to kind of share that bond with them of like, we're not able-bodied, but that doesn't mean that we're going to give up. I'm around all these other athletes that, regardless of the circumstances, whether they're missing an entire leg, or, had a stroke, or some kind of brain injury, that they're still out here figuring out how they can go snowboard and take some laps with me. That's cool to see and be a part of.
How has snowboarding helped you and have that outlet to go play sports with a disability?
Sports is definitely my biggest outlet. It's my safe space. It's where I go to blow off steam. It's where I go to feel okay. If I'm ever upset or stressed out, I strap in and I go for a couple runs, and I put some music in, and I just remind myself how it's gonna be okay. Snowboarding just kind of gives me that feeling, that freedom. For me, it's kind of the anonymity behind it. When I'm out there, I'm wearing gear head to toe. So unless you know what I look like on snow, you're not going to recognize me as, Zach Miller, the kid with cerebral palsy. You're just going to see this dude who's ripping down the hill and having a great time doing it. And to me, that's that extra sense of freedom that I get from it that makes it so awesome, and why I keep coming back to it so much.
Have you not let your disability define you into the snowboarder that you are today?
That's a really good question because you can't get away from your disability. It's always going to be there. So how do you not let it define you? How do you make sure it's not going to be the most interesting part about you? And basically the only answer I have to that is passion. I fell in love with snowboarding, and I realized that that was all I wanted out of life. That was what I feel is my purpose, is just to be a snowboarder. And as I have started to grow up and learn more about my body, myself, become more of a man, travel the world, going to these World Cups and these competitions, meeting people from all over the place, seeing different cultures and what they value, and then kind of looking back on yourself, you realize that your disability is very much a small part of what you are. It is a part of who you are, but it does not have to be the defining label of what makes you you. It's something that you have, but outside of that, I have a lot of passions that I can talk for hours about, from gaming to snowboarding to driving to riding my motorcycle. And I find a lot of my identity in the things that I do and the community that I get to be a part of, the friends that I have made and the family that I've become a part of. That's where I find my most identity is in that. It's in the people that I see day to day and my interactions with them, and then the way that I choose to spend my time. I'm just a dude who likes to snowboard a lot.
What was it feeling like making your first Paralympic team and going to Beijing to compete?
It was it's crazy when you're trying to make the Paralympic team. A lot of people, towards the middle of that season, once everybody's starting to kind of fall into their places in the rankings, it starts to get just the tension in the air is like you could cut through it with a knife, because everybody knows what they're working towards and know that only a few people are going to get to go, and you're never sure if it's going to be one of you, if it's going to be you. And I I got to watch, my mentors and my first, ever snowboard coach, Mike Shea, and my other teammate, Keith Gable, go to the Paralympics in Sochi in 2014 and establish in front of the world that Paralympic snowboarding is a sport, and then bring back medals, with a sweep with him and Evan and Keith. And then for them to come back and see that that's a thing, I wanted to be a part of it. And so leading into the Paralympics in Beijing, nobody knew. Even I even tried asking the head coach, where do I sit? Am I going to make it? Am I going to make the cut? What do I need to do at this next competition to be there? And he was like, dude, just do your best, and then the cards will fall, where they do. And I remember the day that the email was supposed to go out. That was how you found out, is you were basically either going to get an email that said, congratulations, you've been selected to be a part of the Beijing Paralympic team, or you were going to get a call from the coach just basically saying, hey, thanks for your hard work this season. Unfortunately, you didn't make it, but keep working, and next time, right? And I remember my laptop being here and my phone being right here, and just sitting, biting my nails, just waiting for either screen to light up. And I wanted so badly for my computer to ding and my phone to just stay off. And finally, I get this email, and it's from the USOPC, and all it says is congratulations. And when I saw that, the first thing I did was I snatched my phone, because now I know I don't have a call coming. And I called my mom, and she said, okay, you're on speaker, the whole family's listening, what happened? And I said, congratulations on behalf of the USOPC. And then they just drowned me out with their cheering. I didn't even get to read the rest of the email to them. So I got to share that moment with my family. While it wasn't in person, they were there for it, and I wanted them to be a part of it. And then I got to share that email with, my coach, Daniel Gale, and his wife, Amy Purdy, who they co-founded Adaptive Action Sports, which, you know, that was the development team that got me there. So then to share that moment with them, it was truly special.
What has it been like, obviously, being a part of adaptive action sports?
It has been amazing for me. One of the biggest, you know, keys to success, in my opinion, if you really want to make it as an athlete, or as any person really, as a businessman, or anything, um, is you need to surround yourself with the right people. And I was very lucky to be introduced to Dan Gale and Amy Purdy so early on in my career. I was 13 when I met Daniel Gale and his wife, and so to start training with their team, they gave me a lot of the opportunities and resources that I needed to be able to train full time and to really extract my full potential as an athlete and learn the most that I could. You know, with Dan's experience being a coach, and having all those years working with Amy to build up to the first Paralympics, and then to be a part of that and start his own, organization with Amy, they had all the knowledge that I needed to be the best athlete I could be. And so they kind of were the biggest path makers for me in getting to the US team, and then getting to the games. I rely heavily on what Daniel has taught me over the years, even today.
What was that feeling like the first time you got to put on your Paralympic gear and had the Artemis symbols on it?
Oh man, it was a really cool feeling. I remember getting the message from our team manager saying that your team gear is here. Come downstairs to the lobby and try it on, make sure everything fits. And I remember just mashing buttons on the elevator to get it to go as fast as it could down to the lobby, and ran out of there, booked it over, and put on our Volcom jacket. And I just looked down at the zipper where it said United States of America. I looked over at the right sleeve where it had the flag, and I was like, this is my jacket. It's not something I bought. It's not something I'm just trying on that belongs to someone else. This is a jacket I've earned. And it was a truly special moment for me.
Of course, what would you tell your younger self that was first diagnosed with cerebral palsy that one day you would become a Paralympian?
This is always a great question. And every time that I have been asked it, what's interesting is that I've had a different answer, because I've gone through so much in the last 4 years. I've learned so much about who I am, who I want to be, what defines me, what my dreams are. And after achieving everything that I have, after being a Paralympian, after going to the games, representing my country, coming back, and being even a world champion, being a World Cup winner, being everything, just being a dude, still going to college, working on a degree. I think the only thing that I could tell myself, at a young age with cerebral palsy, wondering, if he's always just going to be basically picked last in PE, is, dude, don't worry about it. Don't worry about how people view you. Don't worry about, how you're doing compared to everybody else. Just focus on who you are today and be better than that tomorrow. And as long as you do that, you're going to take steps forward. You're going to improve yourself as a person in all areas of life, and everything will generally work out as long as you're doing that.
What was that feeling like the first time you went down the slopes as a Paralympian?
It was liberating, man. I had worked a really long time to take a run down down a Paralympic course, and to I remember dropping into my first training run. No pressure yet. You don't have to go fast. You're just kind of getting the feel of the course, getting memorization of the turns down, and just making sure the board feels good and everything. Just kind of a basic check. And I remember dropping in and having such a big smile on my face that I couldn't help but giggle most of the run down, because it was like this switch had flicked where it was just fun. I was just snowboarding and enjoying it. And because I'd finally accomplished my dream. I was on a Paralympic course. Why shouldn't I be having so much fun with this? And so I like hit the jump and threw out this little shifty just at the end, just some extra style points, just because I could, because I was there, because I'd finally worked for it and gotten the opportunity. And so that was just one of the funnest runs I think I've ever taken in my whole career.
While at the Paralympics in Beijing, was there ever a moment that you would have told your younger self with cerebral palsy that I made it to the Paralympics and told your younger self that you did it?
Yeah, it'd be at the end. It'd be at the end, and here's why. Because I didn't do as well as I wanted to in the Paralympic Games. I was going there intent on bringing back a medal. I was going there tied for first in the world rankings for bank slalom. I was a world champion. A lot of people were expecting me to just go and medal there. And when I didn't, I just remember feeling like lost. Like, wait, why did I just dedicate so much of my life to this moment and now I'm empty handed? And it was in, I feel like it would be most appropriate in that moment to turn around and tell my younger self that you did it, because just to see the smile on his face, I think it would have really brought into perspective how important that I was just there in the first place. I was getting so caught up in the results and how well I had done, and the fact that I didn't win a medal, that I was upset. And then I feel like in that moment, having the perspective of my younger self to be like, I'm sorry, what? You're there? Like in Beijing, like you're at the Paralympic Games. We did it. We make it. That that would have been a big lifting moment for me, because I think it would have drove home like, yeah, dude, you are there. You did make it. Don't worry about like the numbers. You're there. You've achieved your lifelong dream, and you should be more than stoked for it.
What has it been like, obviously, getting to compete alongside some of your teammates like Mike Myers?
It's been super cool because I looked up to these guys for years. When I first started snowboarding, I actually had no idea that the Paralympics existed. And then to find out when I was like 11 that they were adding snowboarding to the Paralympic Games, this games that happens directly after the Olympic Games, that is the same stage but for athletes with physical disabilities, athletes like me, to go and compete in snowboard. I mean, that was cool. I watched those guys go over there and take place in the first games and come back and bring medals back. And I watched Evan Strong, Keith Gable, Mike Shea go and sweep the podium and come back. And I was like, dude, that that is what I want to do. And I looked up to them and I chased after them. And then when I I got the email, I made the team. I'd gone to team processing and everything. I stepped onto a plane with Evan Strong and Keith Gable next to me. And I sat down, in my spot, and I was going with them. And to all of a sudden be, one of their teammates and one of their peers and one of the guys that's going to be competing with them and going, it's been a cool shift in our relationship, because now they're not just people I look up to, they're people I share meals with. And they're more than humble about it too, and they've taken me under their wing. They've helped teach me the ropes, over the years, long before I made the US team. And so now I am that much closer with them, going into the games and traveling with them even today. It's really cool.
How's it like helping those young athletes learn about the Paralympics and one day make the Paralympic team for snowboarding?
Yeah, for younger athletes, all I have to say is keep having fun, because if you make it to the Paralympics, you've trained for so long. Nobody just shows up to the Paralympics and competes for the first time. You know, the people who make it there are the people who have worked for it. And so for a younger athlete, I would just tell them, keep your smile, man, because there are going to be some of the highest moments in your life that competition will give you, and then some of the lowest moments in your life where you'll feel like a failure and you'll feel just like maybe you should do something else. And it happens to everybody. And the most important thing in those moments is to remember that you do it because you love it. Like my biggest advice would be to find your why. Why do you want to be whatever you want to be? And if you write that down on a sheet of paper, you write down 3 reasons of why you want to be the best skier, why you want to be the best soccer player, why you want to be the best snowboarder. And you look at those reasons, and they're reasons that aren't just superficial. I want to do it because I want to win medals. I want to do it because I want to make money. I want to do it because, you know, I want to be famous. If you look at them and they're reasons that are going to keep you engaged. I want to do it because I love snowboarding. I want to do it because when I'm on a soccer field, I feel focused. I feel at home. Those things. Those are the biggest reasons why I would say kids should continue to work hard on it, because that's what's going to last everything else. That's what's going to outlast everything else is true heart and passion. That if you have that, you can make anything work. It doesn't always have to be about money. It doesn't always have to be about, connections. It's who's willing to put in the work. And the people who put in the work are the people who love putting in the work. So just do what you love.
How's it like obviously getting to meet your fans with disabilities and having them recognize you and ask for your autographs and photos with you?
It's it's really special. It's a special moment for me because I kind of just get caught up trying to keep up with my own life. And then I have these moments where people will reach out to me on Instagram and be like, "Hey, can I call you? I'm confused as to like my setup with my snowboard." And I'm like, "Oh yeah." And so I like call them and they're like, "Yeah, I have cerebral palsy as well, and my balance is hugely affected. And I was just wondering if you had any tips to kind of help with my stance or my form that could help me snowboard better." And to be able to be like, "Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you're going to set your stance like this, and then just basically focus on when you bend your knees, that you're keeping your chest up." And I just kind of walk them through it, and then I get to share these moments where I learn about them and their stories, and then they turn around and are like, "Well, I've been following you, and I can't wait to see how you do at this next competition. Good luck. Thank you so much for calling and helping." And then even better, you call back and you're like, "Hey, how'd it go?" And they're like, "That was awesome. It helped me with this, or I was finally able to do this." Those moments are where I feel like, I don't know, kind of like a superhero, because it's like I'm working on my own life, but then to turn around and help others try and chase their dreams. That's important. That's what leaves legacies. That's what creates lasting relationships with people. Those are memories that are going to last on, and those people for a long time. And to be able to share those interactions with these people that reach out to me, some of these fans or athletes with disabilities that are having some of the same struggles. It's cool to know that I can help and that people can reach out to me and ask questions and that I can be there for them. The same way plenty of other athletes have been there for me during my hard times.
What advice would you give those athletes that are looking to go to the Paralympics?
I would say stay focused. I would say work hard. I would say give it everything. And I would say smile through all of it because you gotta love it. You absolutely just, if you ever get sick of it, stop, find something else. Like if it's ever something where you wake up and you don't want to get out of bed to go do, then that's okay. There's no shame in that. There's absolutely like nothing wrong in just being like, you know what, I don't have the passion for it anymore, and finding something else to do. You'll never regret that. It's the time wasted chasing something that isn't a true dream of yours. That's dangerous. And so if you find something, if you're lucky enough to have figured out exactly what you want out of life, then give everything to it because it won't let you down. That's what snowboarding has become for me. Snowboarding is my purpose, it's my passion, it's what I want to wake up every day and go do. It's what I work at jobs for. It's why I try and save up money so that I can go on trips and snowboard and take days off and snowboard. And so it's that reason that I think I've stuck around for so long and become one of the better athletes in my sport, is just because I've always had a passion for it and I've never gotten sick of it.
That's great advice. Where can our listeners find you at on social media?
They can find me on Instagram and TikTok under the Mountain Miller, all one word. Um, there, I'm always trying to put out content, with reels, stuff about my motorcycle and my snowboarding. that can also sometimes be educational about my cerebral palsy, the way it affects me, and the way that I have to kind of work around its obstacles, day to day, from competitions to training to just daily life. And so, if people can run over there and drop a follow, that would mean so much to me, because I'm just trying to kind of build that audience and get the word out to people who haven't found snowboarding yet. If there's anybody that has any questions, that's also the best way to hit me up. Is if you have any questions about your setup or how to get started with snowboarding, shoot me a message on Instagram. I would love to talk to you.
Thank you again, Zachary Miller, for your interview, and best of luck in your future as a U.S. Paralympian snowboarder.
Thank you very much, man. Thanks for having me on the show, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. You can find Community Heroes on Facebook at Community Heroes, Instagram at com_heroes, Twitter at com_heroes, and you can find us on YouTube at Community Heroes, officially Community Heroes. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Zachary Miller, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.
You are watching Community Heroes. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Community Heroes on social media and on YouTube.